That was classic Barclays Premier League. It ended Chelsea 2, Arsenal 2. The spoils were shared at Stamford Bridge. But before we get into my match review, guys, you know that I'm new to this YouTube game, but I must say the support that you guys have shown after I've only posted one video has been absolutely overwhelming. Like I said before, up to over 100 subscribers, over 300 views on my first ever video. If you guys can continue to interact with the content and subscribe to the channel, I'd massively, massively appreciate it. But let's get into it. Chelsea 2, Arsenal 2. Like I said at the beginning, it was classic Barclays Premier League. Chelsea showed up and showed out against arguably one of the best teams in the country, if not Europe. And for large parts of that game, Chelsea absolutely dominated Arsenal, didn't give them a kick. Obviously, as a Chelsea fan, I'm very disappointed with the end result. Being 2-0 up against one of your London rivals with that amount of time left in the game, you expect to see it through, but I can't be disappointed with the performance, especially in the end room, in that midfield. One of Arsenal's strongest facets in terms of, you look at Odegaard, you look at Declan Rice, you look at Jorginho, who Chelsea fans know very, very well. Chelsea absolutely dominated. Enzo Fernandez was great as always. Caicedo was great in terms of cutting off passing lanes. And then you have Conor Gallagher, a man who has surprised many Chelsea fans. He was wearing the captain's armband yesterday. He's worn the captain's armband multiple times this season. And take your mind back to last season when you think about Conor Gallagher and think about what people were saying about him, the discourse that surrounded him. Should he even be starting for Chelsea? Now he's one of the first names in the team sheet and he's so effective. He was playing as, it was weird, he was playing further forward than Enzo and Caicedo, especially when Chelsea didn't have the ball. He was pressing the Arsenal defence, but he was just so effective in the tackle, and even on the ball he showed glimpses of quality as well. I've been pleasantly surprised by Conor Gallagher this season, and long may it continue. A man who definitely has surprised a lot of people in his recent performances is Marc Cucurella. If you think about, again, similar to Conor Gallagher, what people were talking about when they were speaking about Marc Cucurella last season, is he good enough to play for Chelsea? Have Brighton swindled Chelsea? I'm not saying that he has yet justified the lofty fee that Chelsea paid for him when we signed from Brighton last summer, but the job he did on Bukayo Saka, it has to be applauded. It just has to be applauded, man. He neutralised one of the best wingers in world football and didn't give him a kick. He was hyper aggressive, he was in his face, he was up and at him, and until the latter moments of the game, Saka wasn't in the game at all. Obviously, he got the assist for Trossard's equaliser towards the back end of the game, and we have to talk about some of the mistakes that Chelsea did make for the Arsenal goals. But overall, this is not a video, or this is not a time for me to come on here and start criticising Chelsea. I've been very critical of Chelsea this season. I'd like to think of myself as an honest Chelsea and an honest football fan. But last night, I was more than impressed with what I saw from Mauricio Pochettino's side. And we're now starting to see some semblance of tactics, of patterns of play. And we made life very, very difficult for Arsenal, who are still unbeaten in the league this season and have played some of the best teams. We are off of Arsenal beating Man City. We have seen Arsenal beat Manchester United and given Spurs a very good game. And Chelsea went out there and absolutely dominated a team that we expect to be challenging for the league title this season. And so congratulations to all of those Chelsea players. What we did see in the draw is naivety from Chelsea. Naivety in terms of mistakes, naivety after conceding that first goal, the way that we let them score the second goal so soon after that. But that will come. That will come with time. That will come with experience. It's been well documented how young and inexperienced this Chelsea team are. But in terms of going up against one of the best teams in the country, I can't but applaud this Chelsea side because it was a great, great performance. Cole Palmer, the man who stepped up and scored the first goal, again, a virtuoso performance. He was playing in the weird false nine role. He was dropping deep into midfield and packing out Chelsea's midfield when we didn't have the ball. But when we did have the ball, he was one of our most influential players. Obviously, we know Cole Palmer. He passes the eye test. But he showed some industry and some grit as well and wasn't afraid to get stuck in. And that's a criticism I've had of him. He likes to do all the flash stuff going forward, but he's not necessarily showed the heart and the dog in him. But last night, we saw that. And the fact that he overruled Raheem Sterling, who's one of the senior players in the squad, and stepped up and took the penalty and slotted it away to put Chelsea ahead. It's testament to his mentality and it's testament to the player that he wants to go on to be. And I think he's going to have a very bright future at Chelsea. He's shown in the last few games that he's got all the ability and now he's got the endeavour to match it. And hopefully it's onwards and upwards for Cole Palmer, a player that I really, really like. And just all around the park, Chelsea were competitive. If you look at the way our centre backs played, there was a few shaky moments for Levi Colwill where he gave away possession in difficult areas. But I'd put that down to the conditions. It wasn't the best conditions for football. The ball wasn't zipping. It was raining consistently throughout the game. But I thought him and Thiago Silva dealt with Arsenal's vaunted attack very, very well. If you think about how difficult Gabriel Jesus can make life for defenders. And Silva and Colwill neutralised them, and Martinelli was neutralised by Malo Gusto. He had a bit more joy down his side than Saka had down the right-hand side. But I think Malo Gusto equipped himself well. Again, these are not Chelsea starting fullbacks. In an ideal world, that's Reece James and that's Ben Chilwell. But Cucurella and Gusto have come in and equipped themselves adequately. And they've given Mauricio Pochettino some food for thought as well, because maybe you can start to think about playing Reece James in other positions, because Malo Gusto can show that he can play in that right-back position and hold it down. I was just impressed, man. I was watching that game and I was just very impressed with how much heart and desire Chelsea showed. They just wanted it a bit more than Arsenal. And a controversial point, people don't like seeing players surrounding the referees. People don't like seeing the dark arts, the S-housery in football. I absolutely love it. When the penalty was given, when the ball clearly hit Saliba's arm, I know it's a harsh decision. By the letter of the law, it is a penalty, but what can Saliba do? His arm, he's jumping for leverage, and his arm is in a position where, unfortunately for him, the ball hits it. But when the ball did hit his arm from that Mudryk header, the Chelsea players were surrounding the referee, making life difficult for him, putting that pressure on him. I think we would have got the decision anyway if we didn't do that. But I love to see it. It reminds me of Chelsea teams of the past with John Terry, with Frank Lampard, with Didier Drogba, just applying that pressure. All the best teams in the world do it. Whether it's that Barcelona team that dominated world football, that tiki-taka team who everybody remembers for playing some of the best football we ever saw. But also, they did the dark arts. They influenced referees. They were putting pressure on the officials. And you need to do that if you're going to be a complete team. And I saw that from Chelsea last night. And all I can do is applaud. I was very, very impressed with the performance. Like I say, naivety. The way we gave away the goal. Sanchez passing the ball out to Declan Rice. I don't know what he was thinking. Just get it clear. And he's been shaky at points this season, Sanchez. I know in recent games, Chelsea fans are kind of warm to him because he's made some saves. But I'm just not too sure on him. I'm not too sure long-term if he's the man to be Chelsea's number one. I've grown up seeing some world-class keepers in goal for Chelsea, whether that's Carlo Cudicini through to Petr Cech, through to Thibaut Courtois. And in recent years, we've struggled. Obviously, Mendy had that streak or that run where he won the European Cup and he looked like one of the best keepers in the world, but it didn't last for very long. I'm looking at Robert Sanchez and I'm not seeing it. He's not that guy. And in football, as good as the play in between the boxes can be, you've got to win your battles, win your duels, and be decisive in your own box and in the opposition's box. And that's where Chelsea have struggled for the last few years. We haven't found a settled keeper, and like I said, I don't think Sanchez is that guy. And in the opposition's box, we haven't got those killers in front of goal. We saw Nicholas Jackson come off the bench, have a couple of decent chances, and he just fluffed his lines. He seemed to have a brain fight. He wasn't decisive enough. And that's Chelsea's problem. If we manage to get a third in that game, then we kill it and we don't let Arsenal back into it. Alas, we give them that goal. Sanchez passes out to Declan Rice. It's a great finish from Rice into an open goal. And then Arsenal back into it. The pressure's ramped up. And then they get their second minutes after a cross from the right-hand side from Bukayo Saka into Trossard at the back post. I say Malo Gusto maybe switched off just for a minute, allowed Trossard in behind, and they got the equaliser. And I think based on the fact that you can look at Chelsea's penalty that we got and you can say that it was unlucky, and based on the fact that this is an Arsenal team who've got so much firepower, they can bring a player like Trossard off the bench, they can bring the likes of Nketiah off the bench and still not look any weaker. I'm happy with the point. I would have loved 3. We've not beaten Arsenal at Stamford Bridge for a long, long time. But a draw against one of the best teams in the country at this stage of our development, I'll take it all day long. And you can see after the game in terms of Mauricio Pochettino's quotes, in terms of what you're seeing on social media, people know that Chelsea are not back, but we're seeing some semblance of, like I said before, tactics, of ideas, of identity. And if we can just carry this on through what is going to be a very, very difficult run of games, then I think we're going to end up in a good place by the end of the season. Really quickly, from an Arsenal's point of view, maybe apart from a couple of personnel decisions in midfield, that was Arsenal's strongest starting lineup. Obviously, you have Ben White at right back, you've got Zinchenko at left back, you've got probably the best centre-back partnerships in Gabriel and Saliba at centre-back. In midfield, that's where, if you're an Arsenal fan, you maybe look at it. I've always said from the beginning of the season, I think Arsenal's strongest midfield will be Partey as the sitter, and you have Rice and Odegaard as the number 8s who are more box-to-box. Maybe Odegaard a little bit further forward than Rice doing that dirty work in between the boxes. They opted for Jorginho as opposed to Partey. You never know about Partey's injury issues, whether he's fully fit, whether he's carrying a knock, but he was on Arsenal's bench. But I think from an Arsenal fan's point of view, you would like to see the midfield trio of Odegaard, Rice and Partey, just to see how it would work, because in my opinion, that would be Arsenal's strongest midfield. The biggest concern for the Gunners, though, is in goal. David Raya. This is the man that I was bigging up. This is the man that I said should definitely be starting over Aaron Ramsdale. He's not shown it in recent weeks. This was a disaster class from him. And you can see the pressure start to build on him. Obviously, Ramsdale wasn't at the game, wasn't even on the bench because he just had the trial, so congratulations to him. But David Raya did not cover himself in glory. And Mikel Arteta's now got a decision to make. He came out midweek and talked about the fact that Ramsdale has to work hard to break back into this team. But how hard does he have to work when the person who's replaced him is making errors like that? Mudryk got on the score sheet. Again, congratulations to Mikel Mudryk. I didn't shout him out, but defensively he showed some willing, and he showed some endeavour, and he showed some fight and some heart. And going forward, we want to see some more from Mikel Mudryk. We want to see him get on the ball and be electric. We know how electric he can be, but defensively he showed up, and he got Chelsea's second goal. Whether it's luck, whether he meant to do it in terms of chipping Raya, only he knows. But the keeper was off his line, and Mudryk took the opportunity and he put Chelsea 2 up. David Raya, though, what are you doing? You're so far off your line, and again, Arteta's in a difficult position because he brought Raya in. They're now competing for the number 1 shirt in terms of Raya and Ramsdale. And now Raya's made these errors. What do? You've got to put Ramsdale back in there, surely. He never really let Arsenal down. I remember last season he made some great saves to keep Arsenal in the title race. If you think about the game at Anfield where he was man of the match and made some incredible saves. And he's been a great servant for Arsenal, hasn't he? He's been a great servant. Arsenal fans love him. He shows desire every time he plays. And it'll be interesting to see what Mikel Arteta does going forward in terms of his number 1. But that was, like I said, a great game at Stamford Bridge. So many talking points, so many takeaways. And ultimately, I'm not going to shout it from the top of the roof, but Chelsea might just be back. Guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Please make sure you're liking, commenting, and subscribing. I'll be back with more videos very, very soon.